Thank you very much, Jason. I have to agree with you. I looked at myself in the mirror this morning, and I'm becoming more well-rounded. You know, that's what happens in your late 50s, you know. Anyway, I just wanted to really, you know, there's been some great calls recently and some wonderful ideas. And, you know, like the rest of you, myself, I need to hear those things 2 or 3 or 4 times before it gets through my thick skull. But I'd just like to reiterate a few things that have there's been a couple other calls. I don't remember what they were, but they were about retention and servicing your customers as soon as you get a notice and those kind of things. I guess today, what I'd like to say is what can you do to keep from getting a notice, period? I mean, let's face it, we're in a business where people don't have money. And if you go out and you oversell, okay, the folks aren't going to have the money in the bank. And that's why you got to be smart about it. Realize who you're talking to. I'm not saying leave money on the table, but be smart. And I'll go back to the very first call I ever did, and it's something I think I learned in 1983, and I've just always followed that creed. And I'll just throw this out there. Some of you have heard it before, but, you know, I was taught that there's only 5 little closes, many closes, or doors that you need to close to sell, no matter what your product is, because I certainly wasn't in the insurance business in 1983. But, you know, those things are this, simply in this order. Number 1 is you, okay? Are you selling yourself? Now, that can also be, are you overselling yourself? We don't go in these homes to talk about ourselves. We go in there to listen about others. Okay. Sharing a little bit so that you mirror and match, which was another call that we had, is okay. But I think getting down to business, these folks' attention span in greatest is wonderful, and you can warm up from the minute you get there to the time you leave. So we want to try to make our presentation conversational, and we want to normalize some things in there. You know, but we need to get a commitment on ourselves. If they like you, you know, and you're going over your credentials, you know, ask them if they have any questions about you, if they'd like to get to know you a little better, whatever. But just make sure that you've answered all their questions about yourself. Then, of course, the next thing is your company, you know. And I always like to share a little something there is a little phrase I've used for many, many years. You know, in other words, Mr. and Ms. Jones, we do the shopping for you, okay? And I want to give you the best discounted rate in the state of Texas I possibly can. To do that, I need to know you a little bit better. Do you mind if I go through and ask you a few questions? You know, how do we normalize things? What do I mean by normalize? If you've been in this business for about 6 weeks, you should have about 30 third-party stories. It doesn't take long to just hear and listen to your customers, and who knows, you're going to run into the same situation down the road. And if right up front or if while you're talking about your product, you can share a little third-party story along the way, it is powerful. Okay, that's powerful. You are normalizing people buying from you. Okay? When you knock on the door, everybody has got their defenses up. Okay, so we want to make it okay to buy. We don't need to trick them into anything. And we just need to let them know, hey, we're here to help you. We do the shopping for you. And to do that, I just need to ask a few little questions. Now, there are a couple of things that I've found over the years that are pretty successful in getting folks to talk about themselves. If you got the folks that are a little stone-faced, tight-lipped, something like that, you know, where they're from or how long they've lived there. Okay? Get them talking. If they look like they are folks that are that worked hard and things like that, what they did for a living. A lot of people take pride in what they've done for a living, what their vocation was when they were working, or what they still do today. You know? Talked to a guy yesterday, truck driver. Man, he couldn't stop talking about all his work and where he's been. You know? But that sold myself. So those are just a couple of things. Now, the third door is product. Okay? And I was taught to sell my product to what needs I've found along the way, okay? Because along the way, we're going to ask some questions. We all have the 3 questions, right? I have another question that I answer, and it's just a little bit more blunt, and that is, you know, Mr. and Miss Jones, 9 times out of 10 when I come out and see somebody, they either have some coverage, but they wish they had more, or they don't have any at all. Do you fit in one of those categories? And there I know from that point on, I've got them. I've got the direction I need to go. Inevitably, you're going to find out about their family, especially, this isn't sexist, but women like to talk about their family more than men for the most part. So if you have a tight-lipped woman, you know, ask her about her children. They like to talk about their children or their grandchildren. But let's get back to the product, door number 3. So far we got our sales sold, we got our company sold. Now we want to sell our product, all right? And I was taught years ago to do that in a problem-solution manner, and that's the way I make my presentation. Term life at our age. I get to say our age because that's about how old I am. I'm talking to the folks that are my age, and you know, I like to tell them how term life is not the best product. Here's the problem for us at this age. Now, let me show you a couple examples of what type of term life they like to offer folks, you know, in a senior category, which really is, you know, anything from 60 and on up, Mr. and Miss Jones, or even less than that. So in a problem-solution manner, problem, premiums go up. Solution, fixed premiums. They never, ever, ever go up. Problem, term stands for terminate, doesn't it? At some point in time, when you have one too many birthdays, you lose this coverage. Whole life, what we're offering you here today is permanent. So in a problem-solution manner, you build value. The only time we ever go to the doctor is when we're sick, for the most part. So, you know, we got to make the competition illness, sickness. We don't want any part of that. And then we get a commitment, okay? Any questions about me, my company, my product? Does this all look like something that looks okay? In other words, Mr. Miss Jones, if we could fit a premium that works for you in your budget, you know, is this a coverage and company that you'd want to move forward with? Just a little bitty commitment, man. It just, and like I said, you got to use your own words, not my words. Your words don't taste very good in my mouth, and vice versa. Come up with your own conversational way, and I know many of you guys, you got more business than I do this month, but you know, you do that already. So once we get into the product and get a commitment, there's 2 more doors we need to sell, okay? One is we need to find a good price, okay? And the only definition of a good price is the one the customer gives you, okay? Now, we set this up, and most all guys use what's called an alternative choice close, where they show 2 or 3 options to the consumer, all right? Whether that be $20,000, $10,000, $5,000, $25,000, $15,000, $10,000. For me, I use my common sense, and I try to realize who I'm talking to. And many of these folks, you know, they will let you know what they're up against, you know. My reply, when they tell me, you know, I'm on a fixed income, I say, you know, that's exactly why you need to be talking to me, because all my customers are. That's the idea behind this whole program, is to help folks like yourself on a fixed income get something that's affordable. I'm going to go back to a word I used a minute ago, and that's called normalizing, and I talked about third-party stories. I've got a third-party story I tell that I probably got when I was 5 months in this business, had an old guy, and he was fully in control of me. I was not in control of the situation. And it sounded more like a cattle auction than it did a sales process. Because this old guy turned me around, and he had me, well, I can't afford that. How much is this? And how much is, and every time he was going, how much is $10,000? How much is $9,000? He got to $8,000, and he goes, you know, I can afford that. I think we went down 8 prices or something like that with him in control. And the next thing that he said is, well, I can afford that, and you know what? I said, no, sir, what? He said, it's 8,000% better than what I got now. So when I'm in a situation, and I think I'm up against it money-wise, the last door to close, I'll share that little third-party story, okay? Because a $5,000 policy, you know what that is, Mr. Jones? That's 5,000% better than what you have right now. Okay? So, talk about, I'm going to touch on one more thing while we're talking about closing here. And that is, several, I know if you don't know what alternative choice is, you put 3, 10,000, 15,000, 20, 5,000, whichever one they choose, you win, right? We've heard about the assumptive close, okay? And I've actually managed more salespeople than over the years than I've actually sold. And I think assumptive close is invaluable. You have to use it. However, you can't, everything needs to be laid out in detail. They need to understand. And don't be afraid of them stopping you, okay? I mean, why go ahead and go through all the extra effort if they're going to come clean now with a real, now hear me out on this, a real condition, okay? We overcome objections in the close. However, there are at times conditions that cannot be overcome. Ignorance and poverty are 2 of them, okay? So be smart about it. If there aren't a couple apps that you could probably have pushed, every month, but you didn't, you probably saved yourself some time and money, all right? And I do that. I do a takeaway close. The first objection that I get where I think that they're going back and they're raising a question about me, my company, my product, or is it the price? Is that the only thing that's keeping us from doing this? See, by following a system like this, by conversationally getting a commitment from them along the way, now you have the right to isolate, just the amount of money. And if you normalize the sale, now maybe you go ahead and write up that $10,000 app, and what they were really scared of was the $20,000 premium. So you share some third-party stories about how, we're here to help people. There's a lot of people, older folks, they bought insurance, and with inflation, they don't have enough. And we help folks like that with policies from $2,000 to $5,000. All right? Normalizing. Okay, so the rest of the thing is all about time, and that's all about, your time. You will be a better salesman if you value your time, or salesperson, I should say, if you value your time. Okay? Because when you don't make every effort to close that sale while you're there, what you're saying is you're willing to go back, you're willing to not see 1 or 2 other people, because every time you go back, you're spending your valuable time talking to someone that you've already talked to, right? And that means you're not able to work new leads and new business. So, again, I don't want to go too long with this. I see it's already been 20 minutes. My 5 doors to selling everything is me, my company, my product, the price, and the time. The price can be sold, and usually it just works around working the time and letting them know, Mr. and Miss Jones, there's a lot of folks, and they had all the best intentions in the world, and they told me they'd call me right back, just like you're telling me right now, and guess what? If I had $100,000 for everyone that called me back, I'd be retired, and it wouldn't be living very well. But if I had a nickel for all the people that told me they'd call me back and didn't, I'd really be retired. I mean, really be retired. So, just ask yourself, is this more important? What is this more important than? The cable bill? It's a lot cheaper than the cable bill. So, anyway, those are a few things that I work by, and I just leave one last thing. Another thing that was said on a recent call, I've heard for years, just said this way. It's never any one thing that you do. It's all the little things that you do. And make sure you're doing all the little things, because many times we can't see ourselves. We're leaving things out. We don't realize we are, but we are. So keep in mind, it's all the little things. It's never any one thing that makes a difference. And that goes into all the little things like thank you notes, birthday cards, those type of things that we try to get back out and stay in touch with the folks, which make a huge difference in your retention. Anyways, Chase, that's about it. That's probably long enough, isn't it?
It was I wish you'd go longer. It was fantastic. That was some really, really good stuff. And at this part of the call, if anybody has a question or a comment they would like to throw out there, you can hit *2 on your line. And, Bill, as long as I've known you, you've always been somebody that interacts beautifully with people. That's why you're as good as you are at what you do. And there was something from a book that Eric had given me back when I was 21 years old. Dale Carnegie has a book that says, how to win friends and influence people. And you are one of the best people at working with people. And I know it's kind of off topic a little bit, but when you talk about, retention and working with people on a day-to-day basis, treating them with respect, there's a quote from that book that comes to mind. It says, when dealing with people, let us remember we are not dealing with creatures of logic. We are dealing with creatures of emotion, creatures that are bristling and with prejudice and motivated by pride and vanity. We all want to feel special. We all want to feel loved. And there's another quote that comes from that book that talks about actions speak louder than words. And a smile says, I like you. You make me happy, and I'm glad to see you. So visiting with those clients, being physical doesn't mean, giving them a big bear hug necessarily, but the smile that you have on your face and the way that you carry yourselves is important. And I think you've always been one of the best that I've known. When you talk about, Dan Riddle, James Irwin, Marie Titus, Tom Simpkins, who talks about, how he carries himself when he's visiting with somebody, and you see top producers and the makeup that they have physically, the way that they show and project to the client, that emotion and that love that they have, even on bad days, is important. And you've always been one of the best at developing a rapport with a client. I always found that powerful. And the message today just kind of goes along with what you've talked about on calls in the past. And I thought you did a great job, and we really, really appreciate you being on today. It was a great message.
Yeah, well, ultimately, Chase, I appreciate that. We're our own bosses, okay? Nobody's going to come into your budget and pay your bills for you. So, it's difficult to manage yourself. It's difficult to know when you're leaving out those 2 or 3 little things that made the difference before. So you got to evaluate. If you lose some business that you shouldn't have, did you not sell yourself? Did you not sell your company? Did you not sell the product, the price, the time? Or was it a condition that you just tried to cram? You was assumptively closed. People had no idea what they were getting or anything like that. We get enough cancellations. I assumptively close and start filling out an app almost every time I'm there. But before I leave, I might take it away from them. We're going to make a phone call in many cases. They're going to know when that, they're going to know money's coming out of their bank at a certain date. And then they're going to get a thank you note from me. So that makes the difference, I think.